And I hear this quite a lot from entrepreneurs: be dissatisfied, so you will be ambitious. There is no absolute evidence that says if you are unhappy now, but next week you achieve that promotion you've been looking for, you finish that project you've been trying to do, you buy that big car, you got the house, you get more money, you're not going to be happier with the attainment of that thing or that achievement, because you'll be moving on to the next one.
Delayed gratification for life doesn't really fulfill you, because you're essentially mortgaging today's happiness on the promise of tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you've accrued a happiness debt without realising.
I actually think that happiness is about being solutions orientated. It's not about saying everything's amazing and perfect and absolutely excellent now. It's about saying, you know what, not everything's ideal. This is a problem we have. Let's look at the tools we have. And I really believe that we can create an effective solution. When you bring this liveliness, this energy, this passion, you can inspire others, you can excite others. And that's a great space to come from as a leader.
Hello, I'm Chris Lisserman, and welcome to Sparks, a series by Interactive Workshops. In every episode, we spark something in work and life, from how to spark professionalism, to how to spark culture, to how to spark yet another amazing guest. Jonna, how are you?
I'm actually just okay.
Are you just okay?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a bit more about that later.
Okay.
So I'm okay.
Work on your
okay.
happiness.
Are you okay?
Yeah. I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm fine. Maybe not brilliant.
Okay.
I'm fine.
You're fine?
Yeah.
But we've got brilliant guests.
We have, and this is a guest I've wanted on the show since we started it, and I'm not just saying that. Alysha, welcome to the show, Head of Organisation, Culture and People Development at Age UK.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm very excited to be here. Maybe more excited than Jonah's, and you're fine, but I'm very excited to be here.
Good. You're very excited. Okay, that's interesting.
Tell us a little bit about Age UK. You've got a brilliant job there. What is it? What do you do?
Oh my gosh. Whenever I describe what I do to people, it's the funniest thing. I'm basically like, I do everything, but these are the things you need to know about. So at Age UK, I get to be involved in learning development, culture, leadership development, organisational development, engagement, and organisational development, design as well. So there's a little bit of everything going on there.
It's reminding me of The Sound of Music, actually. These are a few of my favourite things. Yeah, leadership development, organisational development, culture, strategy. What a dream job. And tell us a little bit about Age UK. Tell us what that organisation is all about, what it does.
Yeah, of course. So Age UK is the leading charity for older people in the UK. We also work internationally, and we had a federation of amazing local Age UK charities. Really what we're there for is to work with older people, to advocate for older people, and to make sure that older people live in a world where they're valued and included. And that charitable cause is just absolutely central to everything we do.
Brilliant. And I just want to check in, as in our office, I'm considered older people. Will you be able to help me? How old do I need to be older people? Yeah.
I think older is an interesting thing to define.
Yeah, good.
But probably at Age UK, we're more talking for people who are potentially in their 50s and 60s and upwards.
So into the retirement/midlife retirement bracket, I've got 3 years to wait before I can get there to 50. Yeah.
Give us a call when you're
and
there.
that won't be the retirement bracket by the time you're there.
No, maybe not, but at least I'll be able to get help about how I plan for that.
Yeah, you'll be getting back in touch.
Definitely.
And we're talking in this episode about how to spark happiness. How happy are you, Jonna?
This week only, not that happy. I would say in general, incredibly happy. Most days, very happy.
Right.
But I've actually had quite a busy week. I've got quite a lot going on. Some of it's quite serious, that's unusual for me. And I've got my wife's not very well. I've recently got a dog. I have to keep getting up early. So my general vavavoom is notched back by a couple.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'd say in my life in general, very happy, but this week, not that happy.
Okay.
And
maybe because we're talking about it, that's enabled you to admit that to us.
Yeah, and that's also why I've come to the podcast, so that you can spark it in me. And that's the true test, isn't it? If by the time we leave, I'm on cloud 9, then maybe we've sparked some happiness.
No tall order there then. Just a
no
small
pressure,
ask.
No pressure.
How happy are you, Alysha?
Do you know what? I think that's interesting. I actually think I'm a little bit similar to you in the sense that this week I'm probably a 7.
Okay.
And I'll probably usually be like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
But also I think it's just reflective of the fact that happiness isn't stationary.
It's not.
You don't stick in one zone of happiness. and actually the environment going on around you. Talking to Chris, doing lots of studying at the moment, really interesting, love it, have no free time.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that therefore impacts things. So
things. And you've already identified that those different levels overall can be happy on a given day or given week.
Yeah.
Can be.
Maybe it's like the sea. You know, when you go to the beach, you've got the tides coming in and out, but also you've got the phases of the moon, which say how high the high tide is, how low the low tide is. Maybe we have that kind of variation going on. What do you think, Alysha?
I agree. I think you've always got you've got a baseline happiness, and then you've got varying degrees that come with it. And I think it's influenced by what's going on in your life. And for me, it's just like having that space to do things that spark my own happiness.
Yeah.
And because I'm studying at the moment, that's really fulfilling. But actually, it means that I'm taking away all that extra free time, laughing about the fact there's not very much. And so I think that that's reducing my general overall happiness right now.
Yeah. So you've got lots of things going on and less free time. Chris, we should ask you, not that we don't care, but when I say we should ask you, I mean, we're going to ask you.
You have to, yeah.
We have to
just
ask
out of politeness.
you, just to complete the trio. How's things with you?
Yeah, I'm happy. And I think I've always thought of myself as a happy person. And I think sometimes that can make it harder to then admit that you're unhappy because you've got this perception of, well, he's always happy.
I would generally never admit I'm not happy.
No, it's difficult at times. I don't really know why.
Why? Why do you think it is?
Partly, I think that commitment to consistency.
Value
we
set.
talked about before.
A value set?
Value set. Yeah.
So you're self-identified as a happy person.
Yeah. And I try to stick to that.
You stick to it.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think, Alysha?
I think absolutely. I think there's something there about what other people's expectations are of you as well. When you always show up as something, even if you change and things are happening in your life, you feel like you almost owe it to others.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think
social conditioning.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes less about you and your identity and more what you think that others expect of you.
This is really fascinating. I had this experience when I first started freelancing, and we'll tie in, perhaps it relates to also older people who may be on their own. When I left working in an organization and worked on my own as a freelancer, I would go to visit companies to run learning development, and then I'd come home. But I didn't have anybody to work with day to day. So I had no one projecting onto me what their expectations of me was. And I really missed it. Like when I had an office to go to, I'd go in and they'd go, "You're Jonna. We know how you behave. We know what you think." They wouldn't say that, but you're an upbeat person. They would know that. So they'd treat you as an upbeat person. They'd treat you as someone who wanted to progress. They'd treat you as someone who was funny, or they'd treat you as someone who was sporty. And when they took away that social part, there was no one projecting that onto me. And then I had to think, oh yeah, I've got to come up with all this myself now. Whereas if let's say you're sporty and your colleagues keep saying to you, "Are you going to go for a run today?" Or let's say that you're cultural. So what exhibitions are you thinking of going to this week? Your colleagues and those around you actually reinforce that identity and expect it of you. And I'm wondering if that maybe when I get to being older, that's one of the challenges, isn't it? That you may be missing out on work, or you may be a different living situation, and people's impressions of who you are may not have the history.
I think that when it comes to getting older, I think one of the things that we know is a really big issue for older people is the epidemic of loneliness. And actually, it's not even that you don't have people to bounce ideas off or to kind of like show up for. You don't have anyone sometimes. And we have like our befriending calls, and sometimes those calls from volunteers are the only time that whole week that person has spoken to someone else. And so imagine like if you hadn't been going into those rooms and delivering, L&D solutions, and you'd just been at home the whole time.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's I think we forget how much we are social creatures and how much we value being able to engage and, share ideas with and just get inspiration from others.
Yeah, I would recommend in that case getting a dog, because it has to be walked twice a day, but the thing is you meet all the other dog walkers, which I love.
It's a reason to get out of the house.
Oh, hi. So little small interactions, and the dogs are sniffing each other, and you basically have to awkwardly sort of stand there, and then eventually you start talking to people. But it's not for too long, so you can at some point you can quickly move on. But it's certainly, I must be meeting about 10 more people a day at the moment than I was before.
Yeah, it's an interesting networking device.
Can we get people dogs for Age UK?
I like the way you're like, dogs are the solution.
A solution, possibly.
Yeah.
It's a hypothetical. It's actually, I find that same in the gym. Actually, I used to do a lot of working out, just go jogging, go cycling, and then when I start going to the gym, it's like, okay, there's the person on the door, there's the person I always see there, there's the fitness instructor who's always persuading me to try and get some classes, And then I would say, what do you think I need classes? He's like, yeah. You could do with being a lot fitter. Oh, thanks. I won't bother going with you. But there's all those social interactions. Some people are more introverted, but we still need that community sort of feeling.
And when you are happy, both of you, how would I know? What are your happiness tells?
What's your tell, Alysha?
Ooh, I love that. I think that my happiness tell is actually not how I present, but what I bring to the room. So I think that like Chris, like you, Jonna, I think that I will show up as a positive, smiley, kind of bubbly person. But actually the way you'll know if I'm happy is the quality of ideas that I bring. So for me, like I have ADHD, and that definitely impacts the way my brain works. And what I'm really good at doing is looking at all these disparate random pieces of data that I've picked up because I'm really curious and I want to mine things and be able to find patterns and solutions. And that's only enabled when I'm happy or in a good mental health headspace. And so actually, when I come into a room and I'm like, here's an idea, here's this solution. My team have a joke that I'm called the ideas fairy because they'll be working on something and they'll ask me to come into the room and they'll be like, we'll leave and you have left all these good ideas. And they're like, we should have talked to us sooner. We've changed everything. And so I think it's the quality of the ideas and solutions that I come up with.
Quality of ideas, quality
You
thinking.
become an ideas fairy.
An ideas
In
fairy.
happiness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
My tell, it's very personal, but you will find me spontaneously singing in the shower.
Ooh.
So, and this actually,
I'm not sure we will find you, but
I hope you won't
might find yourself.
I find, but it actually surprises me. That's the point. It's not
Okay.
that I start singing. At some point, one morning, I'll be like, da, 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 in the shower. I'm like, oh, I must be really happy.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. My grandmother always used to say, anytime I was humming or singing, she'd go, oh, he's happy.
Yeah.
And I've always remembered that. And every time I catch myself humming, singing, I just hear that voice.
I'm just
oh, yeah, you're
realising,
happy.
though, maybe it's actually credited, isn't it, that a lot of the best brainwaves happen when people are in the shower or the bath. So maybe the brain ideas and the shower and singing are all connected somehow.
Yeah, it could all be connected.
I think that's an interesting point, though, about joyful expression. Like, how do we express joyful emotions? And I think that it's also about, like, when do we feel them and how do we share them? I think, whenever I feel gratitude or happiness, whatever, I will, and for friends or for loved ones, I'll absolutely be sending them a message or a little video or something because I want to express it out into the world. And I think that sometimes you want people to hear those moments because they can be really fleeting.
I get those actually from one of our consultants, Emily Link. She texts me. Like joyful things. She texted me last night. She said, I've just been speaking to this person. They said how much they enjoyed working with you 5 years ago. Yes. And I texted her back, thank you so much. But those joyful things. And I think also you've got to be aware to notice them.
Yeah.
And when I know when I'm outside, I think, isn't this rain wonderful? The farmers must be so happy with that. It's going to grow the crops. It's going to refill the reservoirs. Then when it's sunny, isn't this sun brilliant? It's going to give me a nice suntan. Where's my muscle vest? There's a kind of values set, but you've got to have the awareness, the noticing of the things. And sometimes it can be easy to be blinkered, especially if you're feeling low or lonely. Your head, your mind, or if you've got worries, you go introverted, and you focus on the inside, and then you actually miss the joie that is out there in the world, the colour, the light. The smells. My little dog goes out the door every morning and goes, But we don't. We could do that. We don't do that. We're like, what time's my alarm? Oh God, I've got to get on the tube. But the little doggy walk is like,
we could be sniffing around, finding the nice things,
taking in the morning air.
But have we also got to hold that along with knowing the time and the place to sort of release your happiness and show your happiness? Because someone could be having a difficult time, your team could be in a difficult place. And if you come in saying, isn't it a great day, sun's shining, let's go, I'm so happy, might be misinterpreted or negative.
I think that it's about, there's something there about celebration. And actually, when it comes to happiness and teams and team building, actually, I think celebration is essential. And I think that happiness and that kind of like almost blinded expression of it, of sort of going into a room and being like, everything's wonderful and amazing, is different to celebrating wins with the team. And so I think you can celebrate wins with the team in a kind of compassionate and kind of tactful way, regardless of what's going on in people's lives. And sometimes those wins can be what helps boost people during hard times. And, celebrating wins can help with resilience as well. And I think that there's something there about where and how do we celebrate the things that have gone well, and how do we recognise the people who've made that happen? And hearing, 5 years ago, you've still made an impression on
That
someone.
made me so happy. Yeah, that did make me happy. But you're right. I think it's interesting to talk about celebration, isn't it? But that is perhaps thinking about what we're celebrating and how. But to Chris's point about, I think it's a hard one to answer. Like, should you hold back to not upset other people who are maybe not having such a good time? And in the current zeitgeist of infinite empathy, where we're always concerned about what other people are thinking, we're possibly moving towards a more Scandinavian or Swedish model where outbursts of just exuberance are kind of frowned upon to some extent if it were to impact on someone else. Whereas I'm more up for it. I think maybe we should have happiness competition. And if I'm happy and you're not, I'm just winning it.
Just try and out-happy each other.
So go into the room, be really happy. That's
Points on the board.
That's another point for me. Yeah, happier than all of you. No, but if we all hold back, then I think that wouldn't work either.
We'll become unhappier, I think, overall.
I think empathy is so important, isn't it? If someone's having a bad day, you've got to be able to go there with them. But also, that doesn't mean you should hold back on all aspects of where you're at forever.
And a bit of empathy can maybe switch us to think about how to make them happier, like we're doing for you now, Jonna, rather than...
Can people do that?
Yeah. Because I could just say, I'm really happy, and here's why. But I could say, here's a good
you
reason
make
to
me
be happy.
If I was, let's say, for example, that I was only a 3 out of 10, not 7, what kind of strategies and tactics would you use to cheer me up? Or cheer me along?
What are you thinking, Alysha?
I think that the majority of things that would happen would be things that we can do collectively, or things that are motivated and kind of like done by you.
Okay.
And I think that there's a balance between the two. Like, I think what Chris and I could do if you were feeling a 3 is to understand why, hold that empathetic space, and then move through, like,
As
with
you
that
do that,
context.
I'm feeling a 4.
And I think that there's something there about, like, the energy that's brought into the room can be
the energy
really
you're
powerful.
bringing actually is a bit infectious. I'm feeling a 5.
Oh wow, we're getting up there. We're going quickly.
And I know from what you've just said that you like when people are remembering you or remember you positively. And I can tell you that last week, some participants that I was with from Madrid, when they met up in Madrid,
I can't hold it.
they had this podcast on their TV screen. They showed me a picture.
No, I'm feeling a 7.
There you go. They included you in their little meet-up in Madrid.
They listened to our actual podcast. We only got about 53 listeners.
They're one of them.
Okay.
Shout out to you guys.
Yeah. Click, subscribe.
If you're enjoying this podcast, give it a like.
Okay, so there's some positive reinforcement aspects.
How are you feeling now? How are you feeling?
6 or 7, 8.
There we go.
But there's echoing. What you're doing is you're thinking about what motivates me, and you're thinking about what could motivate me in general, and then you're supplying it to me. That is what community is about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And having space to do that, I think, is really
people
key.
that care for you, people that love you, people that will be there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So far, we've talked about how
6.
happiness can be managed. It's a fun thing to
4.
play with. We
I'm
might
back
like
to
to
3
compete. You're back down. We'll try and raise you back up. Can it help us professionally? Or is it just this kind of nice to have that we want?
Yeah, I think happiness can absolutely help you professionally. And I think that whilst John's joking, I think we can kind of sort of see it here now as well. Because I think the reality is that happiness affects the energy you bring into the room. And I see it in my work, and I see it with others. When you bring this liveliness, this energy, this passion, you can inspire others, you can excite others, and that's a great space to come from as a leader, or as a manager, or whatever role you play, because the reality is that you're often trying to bring people on a journey, whether it's big or small. You're trying to get that project across the line, or you're trying to do a big change program. You want to be able to inspire people to come with you on that journey. And I think that having that happiness in the room definitely helps bring that energy. And I think you can almost say, actually look at the polar opposite. So we've all been working with people, we've all been around people who are really negative, who are really, who've got that kind of energy where you're like, wow, this feels like such hard work.
Actually, I haven't been around those people.
Have you not? This is because you cultivate your own
not
company.
to employ them.
I learned once it's okay to fire a friend.
Okay, so we've learned from but do you know what though? There is something there where I don't think those are environments where innovation happens. When you feel like just existing with this person is effortful, and actually every idea you bring up they shoot down, like that's really hard. I actually think that happiness is about being solutions orientated, and it's a little bit there about saying, It's not about saying everything's amazing and perfect and absolutely excellent now. It's about saying, you know what, not everything's ideal. This is a problem we have. Let's look at the tools we have. And I really believe that we can create an effective solution. And I think that's actually where happiness can come in. It's almost a positive outlook for the future, or for the potential of the future.
Well, that's a great question. Is happiness today or tomorrow? Is happiness something? Is happiness, to what extent is it based on what we see when we look forward today into tomorrow? You're making me think of the markets. The markets run on confidence, don't they? And so the entire of Western capitalism is based on the idea not of what things are worth today, but what they'll be worth tomorrow. And this tomorrow is going to be worth more or less than today. I guess there's a little bit of that in our happiness equation, which is if I'm delighted today, but think things are going to get worse tomorrow, then my happiness stock price is dropping.
Yeah.
If I'm having a bad day, but I think that things are going to get better tomorrow, even if I'm not feeling, let's say I'm unwell, but I'm thinking, but I'm going to be better by the end of the week. I'm looking forward to going on holiday. My vision is lifted to the future.
I think there's something there about this idea that we have. And I hear this quite a lot from entrepreneurs, actually, which is around be dissatisfied, so you will be ambitious and future focused. And also this idea of delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And I think people have taken it as delayed happiness. And I actually think that's part of that is around where people expect their happiness to come from. I think that there is no research, that there is no absolute evidence that says if you are unhappy now, but next week you achieve that promotion you've been looking for, you finish that project you've been trying to do, you buy that big car, you got the house, you get more money, whatever it is, you're not going to be happier with the attainment of that thing or that achievement, because you'll be moving on to the next one and the next one. And so I think that for me, there's a really interesting balance between appreciating and finding happiness in your now,
yes,
and focusing and driving forwards your future.
Yeah.
And I think that this kind of idea of we achieve best when we're unhappy is unnecessary.
Yeah.
I'm sure
the religious writers call it eschatological tension, which is the tension between the now and the not yet.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is somehow the ambition for the future, it shouldn't be used as a thing that's going to make you happy, but there's a tension between the happiness you have now and what you might get in the future. It strikes me also that delayed gratification for life doesn't really fulfill you, because you're essentially mortgaging today's happiness on the promise of tomorrow,
which may not come.
Which may or may not come, but also when it does come, you've got the fact that for all of those years you weren't really happy.
Yeah.
So you've accrued a happiness debt without realizing. And I think that a lot of it is about simplifying your life and making sure that you're focusing on the main things and not getting distracted. Family, health, a fulfilling or enjoyable job, finance, friendship, creative stimulation or the arts or whatever it is that is your thing, or sport or whatever you do. Actually, hobbies as well, things that don't matter, frivolous, enjoyable, holidays, this kind of stuff. For me, it's the whole tapestry is what makes you think, oh yeah, this is going really well actually, and I'm enjoying my life, and I'm enjoying today, and not worrying too much about tomorrow.
Yeah. So for you, is it more focusing on those things rather than focusing on how to be happier? Am I happy?
Yeah. And I think, we mentioned a little bit of this in pre-show, but for me, I believe that happiness is a bit like love. If you keep asking yourself, am I really in love with my partner? Really in love? If you make that the goal, then it's always easy to end up with the answer, well, not quite as much as I want to be. The same with how, are you really happy? Really, really happy?
Often make me doubt it.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you doubt. So I tend not to focus on trying to be happy. I try and focus on the things I found will fulfill me, the connections I make that will nourish me,
where happiness is a byproduct, maybe
balance, or the ingoings and outgoings that I can handle, that not running up debts, things that are going to stress me out. The get on the scales so it's not too much over or too much under. Go to the gym enough, this kind of stuff. But I think if you work on spend the right, not just the right amount of time with my kids, but the right quality, these things, focus in on those inputs. The happiness is a thing that's sort of consequential that comes from it. But if you chase it in and of itself, you'll invariably end up pretty much with the answer that I'm not quite as happy as I could be, should be, ought to be. And it's like a struggle like that.
It goes back to the idea of like having a baseline level of happiness that shifts and moves as well. You're not going to be the same level of happy throughout the day, and you're not going to be the same level of happy throughout your life. And if you're measuring it, it's going to be different numbers each day and each month and each year. And actually it's about the quality of the things that you do and doing things that are meaningful for you. And then in addition to that, like it is the outcome, it is the product of that happiness is a result of.
Exactly. And I'm now the tidal metaphor that we have. I'm just thinking about the beach we go to on holiday, which I love.
Where do you go on holiday?
I'm not saying.
Oh,
because it's
spoilers.
secret cove. But at high tide, there's no beach at all. You have to sit on the rocks. Maybe in our happiness equation, it's also worth noting that it's actually good for the human being to not actually be fully happy all the time. The Stoics and other people believe that suffering is an important part of life, and we're all the better for a bit of suffering, a bit of misery, a bit of difficulty, a bad time. When I broke my leg a year or so ago, year and a half ago, I decided to embrace that and not wish that I hadn't done it. I just wanted to be happy that I'd done it, be glad that it happened, because it would trigger me to try out new things. I had to start getting the bus to work. I met a whole bunch of people, and when I went to the gym, they're like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm on my crutches. I've got my leg in plaster." "Yeah, what are you going to do?"
Arms day.
The hand bike. Yeah.
Arms day again.
Actually on the work front, it was a busy time at work, and I said to myself, "Do you know what? I've done this. It's a very busy time at work, but I can't make that the priority right now because of where I'm at. So I'm just going to let all that stress go, and I'm going to use this broken leg as a vehicle to take me through these few months and let the work take care of itself." And it's like, I think it's interesting. The same actually in relationships. There's a great theorist who says that marriages, for example, or long-term relationships, they're not supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to be full of troubles. And imagine if they weren't. I mean, if it wasn't ups and downs and there wasn't things going on, it would be so boring. Like, hi darling, how are you? Yeah, great to see you. But when you have an argument, or when you have a fallout, or when someone does something wrong, or when you go through a difficult time, and like for me, I travel a lot, so sometimes we don't see each other for ages, and then it's back together again. But the idea that we're supposed to have these struggles, actually that's how it's supposed to be. And the other thing that you get in the movies, that isn't not really not good for us even. I think that's quite fun.
Yeah, even the movies would be really bad if it was just a perfect relationship, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Perfect. No problem.
Not good
story.
watching.
Yeah, not a good watch.
Have you seen reality TV?
Yeah.
Like, come on. They are not putting their best couples on there.
No.
I actually really like what you're saying there, Jonna, though, about like the struggles. And I actually think that that's a really powerful tool that I think is useful when thinking about balancing happiness and future and all of these elements, because I think it's that growth mindset thing. One of the things that I really reflect on as an individual is whenever I'm going through challenges, I try and view it as an opportunity and this opportunity to learn. And I sort of say, if I invest now in learning and understanding how I can really master this skill, or how I can get through this difficult thing, future Alysha will be really thankful. And I sometimes use future Alysha as like,
she's good.
She's on it. She's on the ball.
She's someone you want to please.
You're doing something kind for your future self.
Yeah.
And I think, you know that this period will end. But if you can have attained learning, growth, whatever it is from that struggle, that's actually the outcome. And that's how you can maintain this idea of like happiness isn't always this bright and light and sunny thing. It can actually just be finding the moments of levity, of learning, of opportunity in difficult times. And I think that's what, your gym and your broken leg example really gives us there. You could have been like, this is the worst. Here's all the bad things happen.
I banked it. Yeah, but it's a cliche in learning development, isn't it? Bank the learning. But that learning translates into experience. That experience translates into wisdom. Yeah. And that's when you become of even more years older. Hopefully you've banked those experiences. But if you didn't live it while you were, and extract that opportunity during the time it happens, you can get further and further on in your life without having grasped that. I was chatting with my daughter. We had a bit of an argument, but she told me off because I wasn't emotionally level. I raised my voice, and then she's saying, "Dad, you won't let me raise my voice at you, and then you raised your voice at me. That's not good." But she's already banked that it's a lot better if you don't raise your voices, and that we're not supposed to do it.
Yeah.
But that's learning that even at a young age, you can accumulate this wisdom. She's actually quite wise, even though she's annoyingly 12. She already knows how to have a good argument. actually, and she also knows how to negotiate. She was trying to use a split the difference strategy with me. Yeah. I will send her the negotiation book, Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
But she's banking all this experience, and kids are good at that, aren't they? And
they're always learning.
But in learning how to be fulfilled and happy, and learning professionally also how to be satisfied with your professional work, requires us to put in the hard yards and be open to learning as we go. They should have a whole industry dedicated to that, called something like learning and development.
Yeah, that would be
That helps people in organisations.
Should we run a business in that
and
area?
develop, so that the time that they're there, they get better, wiser,
banked learning,
stronger, have brighter ideas,
faster,
get results faster, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
we could work with the likes of Age UK.
They're already doing all that. They're doing really well.
This sounds like pure chaos. Very disruptive industry, guys.
Yeah, well, it would be a very disruptive industry, because it would, instead of be saying drown in your misery, it'd be saying we can help you be happy. I mean, surely that's a sale of the century. Please listen to, subscribe, and comment on the pod. Give us a like, because we're doing something really, really good, and you and your friends can all benefit from it.
We've talked a lot about how we can change the way we view things that happen to us and choose happiness, if you like. Can we ever channel unhappiness? You kind of alluded to it in terms of innovation is sometimes born out of a frustration and unhappiness with how something works. Something's missing. Can we channel it?
Ooh, I love that question. I think there's a big difference between unhappiness and critical thinking and having a critical eye. I think that you can, one brings misery to everyone, the other has an opportunity for solutions. So I think that unhappiness, I think it's really hard to sit in a space of unhappiness and find positive outcomes as a result. I actually think that the critical eye piece is the part where innovation or kind of opportunity happens. And that's where you recognize this isn't right, this can be done better, here's an opportunity there. But you see them as opportunities versus seeing them as just like, I feel like unhappiness is more about the status quo, and I feel like critical eye is more about here's something we can do better and differently. And I think it's how you frame it. I think even the language you use is really powerful, actually. And we talk so much more now as a society about the power of language. And when I talk about we talk about problems out there, we say areas of development, or you say here's an opportunity for us to do better. And I think that those are how we reframe things, both professionally and personally, in terms of what we're going to do about it. Because that's really the outcome, isn't it? You want a better solution.
Yeah, I'm curious where you get your value set from, Alysha.
Ooh.
Like a little bit personal, because you're obviously an extremely positive person, optimistic, self-aware. But like, how did you get to that? People are, maybe you were like my daughter, born with it. But what was your family life like? What was your early career like? How did you know? Because you've got quite a sophisticated mindset, reframing and all these other things. How did you get there?
I would really say that, honestly, where I got my personal values from is by being deeply different. So I grew up neurodivergent. I was diagnosed for dyslexia, and then only in my mid-20s diagnosed with ADHD. And actually, all through my life, I felt and was different. And I never conformed to societal expectations or, the sort of homogenization that sort of happens at school age. Had a very unconventional schooling thing. I left school at 12, home educated myself for a few years, did my A-levels, finished them at 17, went off and started my kind of career, went to university.
What did you do in your career to start with?
L&D.
Was it from the start, straight in?
It was sales, L&D. I was nannying for a while. I mean, I've also run like 3 small businesses. I've produced a documentary. I think that there's always been different things that I have engaged in. But for me, it's about like a clear sense of identity. And knowing who you are is actually both harder and easier when you don't fit in. And I think that understanding where you can leverage your skills to bring value and to bring happiness and to bring other people on the journey with you has been something that I've had to think about and cultivate in my work. And I think that that's probably what you're seeing.
Independent thinker since 12.
Since 12, yeah.
Yeah.
It shows.
Yeah, my daughter does keep asking me, Dad, can I go homeschool? But she's got a friend who homeschool, and that friend doesn't seem to do that much work. Okay,
well, I mean, to be fair, it's a different kind of work. But I mean, I got my GCSEs and everything.
Seems like you did enough work.
I think you did enough work. Yeah. But it's interesting. What you're able to do is you're able to make a choice at whatever age to do things that fulfilled you, whether it's producing movies or whatever else you're doing, films. But the confidence to choose your own path, a lot of people are trying to fulfill others' expectations and are following a path set out for them. And we meet a lot of execs like that, don't we? Why are you a lawyer? Well, because my parents were lawyers and they expected me to go to law school and here I am, or whatever else. Teachers say the same. But choosing your own path, setting your own, but daring to be different, setting your own path, self-acceptance, these are all things that also can pay off in the happiness department.
Yeah.
I think that kind of comes back to that idea of short-term wins for long-term losses. You know, you can fit in and you can do what others think you should do. And in the short term, it's fine. And in the long term, you've got this debt. You talked about the happiness debt. I think there's something really there about careers.
My up-and-coming book, The Happiness Debt.
I would read that.
The crap happiness trap. Something like that.
We'll work on the slogan. Yeah. The title's great.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think there's something there, though. It's about really knowing what motivates you and really being in tune with that and finding the right paths. And actually, that's something, you know, we talked at the beginning about my job and this, like, I've got these really 5 big, interesting, disparate areas. And the reality is that throughout my career, whatever job I've been in, whatever the title was or whatever the job description was, I've always forged my own way. What I'm good at doing is finding gaps and then creating the solutions. And to be honest, I didn't really ask permission to do that. I would just do it. And then people would have, you know, that's been recognised throughout my career, and that's what's really like pushed me forward.
Thinking you're also motivated by variety.
Yes.
So having multiple disciplines and multiple things you're working means you can move around between areas and change tack and go and do something else for a bit. That is really fulfilling to me as well. That's one of the things I love about my job role. Yeah. We had a very interesting marketing meeting this morning. There's a finance meeting that's also interesting. Then there's a client meeting that's also interesting. Then there's a podcast that's also interesting. So having lots of different things to do that stimulate me, that really means a lot to me. I know Chris also likes that kind of variety, won't you?
Yeah.
You're on a stage with 250 participants for a week last week, but then back this week to some intense marketing work and some leadership stuff. And
then back out to travel again. Yeah. I love that variety. I'm interested, Alysha, what Age UK is doing in this kind of space, happiness, mental health. What are you involved in? What is the company doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's a question there about, well, how does happiness fit into work? And I think the reality is that happiness is a personal thing. It's both it's a personal pursuit in some ways, and it's not something that your manager can come in and be like, today we're going to be more happy. I think that what your role as a company...
Ricky Gervais.
I mean, that's, you know, I don't think we saw it as the most effective approach in that. And I think that what I'm really passionate about, so I've been at Age UK for 4 years, and one of the things that have worked really hard on is creating a supportive wellbeing culture. So it's about fostering the space where mental health is supported, and where good mental health is supported as well. And really good mental health is the foundations for happiness. You know, so it's sort of this balance of your workplace. It's to create an environment that enables you to be the best version of yourself, but you still have to show up and be the best version of yourself. So at Age UK, we've done all sorts of things with changing how we talk about mental health in the workplace, really destigmatizing it, making sure that it's part of our everyday language, training all of our managers at every level, and making sure that everyone at Age UK understands what wellbeing means to us and how we should talk about it. And I think that those are things that we really see the impact for now. Like, all of our new starters come whenever there's surveys, or whenever I have conversations or other people have conversations, they're like, wow, you guys talk about and care about well-being in a way that I've never seen before. And that is so gratifying, because, you know, as a team, we're really motivated on it, but I also have my personal reasons. You know, I struggled with my mental health for like 15 years from the age of 9. And I think that that's, you know, to be able to be in a space and be able to make positive change for others and know that it's having an impact is so fulfilling and so amazing. But also kind of comes back to this idea of like happiness and mental health. It's like they're not mutually exclusive. I think if you'd met me, you know, 7 years ago and I was still really struggling with my mental health and I was really severe anxiety, you'd still be like, she's a really happy person. So I think there's something interesting there.
They're not completely connected, are they? And it's again interesting, the impression that you give versus what's really going on.
Exactly.
Of course, mental health, social media, what you see is not what's real. But we have the same in social context as well. We can all scrub up in my case, put on a bit of lippy and go out looking good, and we could take a few photos and stick it on Instagram or LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a classic, isn't it? There's 99% of people telling you how brilliant they are, and then the other one's telling you something's really bad, but they go viral because everyone's really sympathetic and kind. But the sort of the social media and society, they're not the media version, but just social. There's a pressure to show up happy, and that's not always what's real. I think we're quite good here. I believe that we're maybe not as good as you guys, but we partly in our world, we've got so much responsibility and we're traveling, but we've selected a group of people that are invested in understanding themselves and how they work and are resilient to be able to go and you go off to overseas for 2 weeks to go and run a bunch of events with people in multiple languages on a big visible project. There's a lot of stress and pressure there, and the possibility to have mental health episodes or to choke on the pressure. So, but we've selected people that enjoy that kind of thing. Another part of it is whether you're on your own or in a team. Yeah. And what you mentioned about you've built an organisation that supports it. You didn't say we've enabled individuals to pursue positive mental health. We've created an organisation with a culture that supports people in their mental health. And I personally believe that community aspect is really important to underpinning whether people can be mentally well and full of joie de vivre is the culture and the community that you create and how much we support each other.
So not all pinned on leadership teams, the CEO, etc., but built through a culture that's connected to all the people within it.
All the people.
All the routines, the rituals.
It's everyone's responsibility and everyone plays a different role in it. And I think that you think about how much time you spend in the workplace, and there's that kind of quote going around that like your manager has a bigger impact on your mental health than your therapist or your partner. And whether or not that's true.
It's probably true, isn't it? I mean,
I think that's crazy.
Not than my therapist. Not than my partner.
And I think there's something there, though, about like recognizing work's responsibility, but also where work's responsibility stops and it's individual responsibility, it's collective responsibility. Yeah. There's all of these layers, and we all play different parts in different people's layers in that as well. Yeah. But I think it's really fascinating to see how the discussion and dialogue around mental health and well-being in the workplace is changing. And, we're going to see that more and more with Gen Z around what they expect and what they want from their employers. It's more than just a job now. It's about the environment you cultivate. And I think that's really, really key.
Yeah, we work with a lot of people who are just being onboarded at early careers, the other end from the young. And firstly, a lot of them have had mental health challenges along the way already. And they also have a lot of expectations of their workplace that they're going to be properly supported and not overpressured. And it's already a real joy and challenge for employers to work out how to do this really well.
I want to finish with getting a few tips from each of you. If someone is not happy, what should they be thinking about? Because I think there's a bit of a pressure to, I think we've talked about it before on the podcast. When someone is complaining, they say, this isn't good, I'm not happy. The tendency is to go, oh, that's horrible, you should quit. That's the tendency of a friend, of a colleague. What could we do instead?
I think that there's a few things you've got to do. I think one, it's about understanding what motivates you and what you're passionate and interested in. We've clearly talked about that. Like that self-awareness is key for you developing anything useful when it comes to your toolkit. I think the other element is once you understand what motivates you and what are you passionate about, it's about going, okay, well, what would I need? What's the gap? Where am I now? And what's the gap that exists between me and what I perceive my happiness to be? And once you've found that gap, looking at your circle of influence and saying, where do I have agency and the ability to change these things? What could happen to fill that gap? What am I proactively doing, whether that be about the mindset that I bring? So sometimes you can just get in that space where you're like, everything's bad and rubbish, and actually I'm just going to go into meetings and sort of tell everyone about that. It's about going, okay, well, maybe I can be part of the solution. And then the other element is about like, well, actually, can you lead things? Can you drive things? What can you do proactively? And once you've found like what the limitations are of your agency and of your kind of like circle of influence, that's when you start thinking about, right, have I fulfilled enough of that gap? Am I happy enough? Or are there still things that absolutely cannot be changed and moved? And that's when I would kind of be saying, right, well, that's when you kind of start looking to pastures new.
To identify that gap and then make steps towards that gap. Assess how much you've gone through that gap, maybe. Yeah.
I would be in full agreement with that. I've got 3 A's, my AAA recipe for this. Firstly, acceptance. So coming back to the Stoic mentality, the embracing of suffering, the openness to difficulty, the belief that life should have lots of challenge and lots of difficult moments in it. I think acceptance of your own weaknesses, your own personality, that I think you should accept it. In cycling, cycling is a sport which is built on the idea of suffering, and without being morbid, that's what's there for. They say we all suffer the same, but some go faster than others. If you go out for a big long bike ride, you're going to suffer. I think life, you're going to suffer. You're going to have difficulties, financial, career, family, health, and when you encounter them, you can think, I'm going to enjoy the suffering I'm going to experience here. I'm going to bank it. I'm going to use that to build strength and take full wisdom. So acceptance, then attention and action. So have you really got the good visibility of what's going on with you, with your life? That 360 degree kind of really switched on attention to what's happening. And are you brave enough to take actions on things that need to be changed? I've mentioned it before in the pod, but I worked with someone who said, if you're not enjoying your job, it doesn't really matter how high or low it is, but it's just how frequently you think about it. If it's every month, it's not a problem. If it's every week, it's getting a problem. If it's nearly every day, you kind of need to do something about it. But I feel that's true across all of the different aspects of life. If you've got the attention on it, you assess it, and then be brave, take some action. And when it comes to things that make you happy, most of the actions should be enjoyable ones, like book a holiday, get some new clothes, start a new regime, give some gifts to someone that you love. I mean, it's like
most of us know what those happiness boosters are.
Most of the action parts should be things that bring you or someone else joy, and so go for it.
Fantastic. And before we finish, Jonna, tell us a little bit about how we're making clients really happy.
Well, we've actually worked with NGK, haven't we? So
we
could ask Alysha, what do we do for you, and why did you work with us? What's good about what we're doing?
Good question.
I think that's such a good question. So I actually saw interactive workshops years ago on some sort of webinar, and I think the thing that really stood out to me was like how it was blending research and kind of like a logical approach with innovation, and sort of saying, hey, here's these ideas, here's how you could apply them and make them make sense. There's a big thing in all forms of L&D where it's like, what do you take away from the table? Like, you know, whether it's a training that you've done or something you've watched, what do you actually leave with that's tangible, that you can actually apply and be real? So when we were looking at change management and leading change, that's what we were really thinking about. And that's why we worked with you guys, because what we wanted to do was our people to really like get what we were trying to say about change, the theory, the complexity, the different elements, but also really feel ready to tackle it and ready to lead on it. And I think that was really key for us as an organisation.
That's great to hear. So things that were based in sciencey kind of fact, good theories, good content, blended together in a way that turned into practical application, packaged up in a way that was full of energy and made you feel great.
Yeah. Awesome people. You know.
Great people.
Good to hear. If you've enjoyed this episode, do give it a like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. We'd love that. We also like reading the reviews. So give us a review.
Send us a little comment. And also, if you are a bit unhappy, let us know and we will try to make you happy.
Absolutely, yeah.
These guys can do it. You saw that.
Yeah. We'll get on the phone maybe. It might be the only person you speak to this week, but we'll give you the call. Thank you, Jonna, and thank you, Alysha, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you
so much. Au revoir.
Au revoir.